We now move to questions for the Communities Minister, and I call Kate Nicholl.
Mr Speaker, addressing poverty in all its forms is a key priority for me. Poverty is a complex and multifaceted issue, and I am considering work to date on the development of the Executive's anti-poverty strategy. My officials have engaged with officials from all departments, including the Department of Education, in the development of the strategy so far. I have had discussions with the Minister for Education on childcare and in particular on the relationship between the anti-poverty strategy and the childcare strategy, and I will be working closely with him to progress both these important pieces of work. There are clear links between the two strategies. I and my executive colleagues will seek to ensure alignment of approach between the strategies in addressing the issues faced by children and their parents, with a view to ensuring all parents who want to work are enabled to do so. I am committed to developing solutions to tackle poverty in the here and now. I don't want to produce a strategy that will simply just sit on a shelf. To that end, my focus will be on working with my executive colleagues to develop a sustainable, deliverable anti-poverty strategy which prioritises the issues that will make a tangible difference to people's lives.
Kate Nicholl.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and thank you, Minister, for your answer. The Minister will be aware that childcare cost support under universal credit is only available if you are in work or about to start work. Could I ask the Minister for his assessment as to whether this support could be available for parents and carers who have disabilities or medical needs which prevent them from accessing the support with childcare costs? Thank
Minister.
You. Mr Speaker, the member is correct. The Universal Credit Awards can include a childcare element in the calculation of the benefit award, and this can provide help with up to 85% reimbursement of eligible amount that the customer claims. The current maximum limits are £950, 91 pence for one child and £1,630.15 for two or more children. And she's correct to say that the claimant must be in paid work, employed or self-employed, or about to start work. The difficulty for this department comes if there is divergence from the rest of the United Kingdom. That's where the extra costs come in. But I am aware of the specific of the issues around the specific question that she raises, and there is additional support that will be available for carers that find themselves in that position. In terms of a child with a disability, an extra monthly payment is also available to help with the extra costs of bringing up a disabled child, and the disabled child edition will be paid at either a lower or higher rate, and the lower rate is £146.31 per month for a child who receives any rate of either part of DLA except the highest rate of care part, or receives any rate of either PIP except the enhanced rate of the daily living part. And the higher rate, £456.89, is for a child who receives the highest rate of the care part of DLA. As well as that, there's the Universal Credit Carers addition, £185 extra a month if the person tell us they are caring for a severely disabled person.
Minister, will you give a commitment to factor in the recommendations of the Controller and Auditor General's report on child poverty issued today before finalising the anti-poverty strategy?
Minister.
The member will be aware that that report has only just been published today, and I will want to take time to consider its findings and to get fully briefed by officials on that issue. I recognise that a number of concerns have been expressed in relation to that report. We're not going to have a child poverty strategy in the future, as this will be rolled in to the anti-poverty strategy, but of course it's absolutely right that we take time to consider that, look at the learning that can be taken from that. I think it's important that we do that, and it is important that we go out and try and find a way to ensure that we have a strategy that actually works, that will actually deliver the change that we want to see, and so that includes taking learning from all quarters.
Does the Minister agree that the key to tackling poverty is getting people into work and ensuring that there is affordable, accessible childcare available for parents to do so?
Minister.
Yes, well, Mr. Speaker, the member will not be surprised to hear me say that I agree with her that those who can work should be supported into work, and that means that we need to break down barriers to get people into employment. Now, there are a number of barriers that people face as they try to enter the workplace, and she's rightly identified childcare as one of those barriers, and I am very keen that is an issue that this executive addresses. She will be aware that the Education Minister takes primary responsibility for this issue, and he is committed to getting this addressed, and my department will of course have a role to play in that, and we'll be part of the task and finishing group in relation to childcare policy proposals. Of course, that's not the only issue that we need to address. Disability is another barrier, and we have very low levels of employment for those who have a disability. I want to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to ensure that a disability does not prohibit somebody from getting into the workplace, and some excellent work has already been done in that regard. I think it's also important that people have access to training and the skills that they need to succeed. But in all of this, Mr. Speaker, it will require a cross-departmental approach and genuine joined-up working so we can tackle poverty in all its forms in Northern Ireland.
Call Jim Allister.
How does the Minister think that those who need a fully funded childcare scheme, and indeed other strategies, would feel if this executive were to prioritise tens of millions more into Casement Park, while strategies such as that go underfunded?
Minister.
So the member will be aware that there are a number of outstanding issues in relation to Casement Park redevelopment. There has been an executive commitment from 2011 for £62.5 million for the redevelopment of Casement Park. However, I completely agree with those who are saying that we need to also see our public services funded properly, and that we also need to see a childcare strategy in place, and a childcare strategy that actually delivers the change that is needed in order for people to be able to get into work and not be burdened by the cost of childcare. That's what me and my party are committed to doing, and we look forward to achieving that during this term.
McNulty.
For his answers thus far. Minister, what conversations have you had with the Department for Education and the Minister there in relation to the reality whereby hard-working couples have had to make a decision, or having to make a decision, crippled with the burden of childcare costs and hiking childcare costs, that they're making a decision that either the mother or father are having to stop work? What advice would you give them?
Well, as I indicated in my original answer to Ms Nicholl, we have had conversations between myself and the Education Minister in relation to childcare. As I have said, it is primarily the responsibility of the Department for Education, but this will be a cross-cutting issue, and I'm determined that my department will play its role in delivering this much-needed help. There is no disagreement between parties within the Executive on the need to get this done, and to get this done quickly. We know that this can be a major game changer for people in Northern Ireland, and as we have discussed, the ability to get people into work. So that is something that I'm fully committed to playing my role in. And we certainly will be listening to those stakeholders, listening to those parents, and coming up with what we can to provide that real and meaningful help to people in Northern Ireland.
On then to question 2, to call Liz Kimmins.
Question 2, please.
Mr. Speaker, as I advised at question time on the 20th of February, the scheme of emergency financial assistance was introduced by the Executive in 2007. Its purpose is to provide immediate financial support to households who have suffered from flooding. It is not a compensation scheme, nor does it purport to be one, nor is it intended to replace or displace the assistance that households should receive from their insurers. An immediate payment of £1,000 was made via district councils to provide eligible householders with assistance to make their homes habitable as quickly as possible. In Newry, Mourne and Down District Council area, assistance was provided to 119 households during the flooding event in October 2023. No further payments under the SEFA can be made available. My department can only work within the guidelines that are available at this time. I recognise that there is an issue of concern, especially for people whose homes have been flooded in the past, and the difficulty that there can be in securing flood insurance. Flood Re is a joint initiative between the UK Government and insurers, which will run until 2039, and that programme exists to improve the availability and affordability of flood insurance for people who live in properties in flood risk areas.
Skimmons.
I thank the Minister for his answer, although I can sense that I probably am like a broken record at this stage, and I understand what the information has been provided, but I cannot stress strongly enough how critical this situation is. So I would ask the Minister to please consider a bespoke scheme that will deliver for those families that haven't had insurance, haven't been able to access flood insurance and are trying to rebuild their homes and haven't been able to do so. It is a very critical situation, and I would ask the Minister to strongly reconsider that.
Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the member will understand that my hands are tied in many ways here, insofar as I can only operate within the scheme that is currently available. I have huge sympathy with those who find themselves in the position that she has described. I think on average it costs between £40,000 and £50,000 to repair and refurbish a home that has been damaged by flooding. That is something which is very, very hard on the householder, but unfortunately that is not a cost that my department is able to absorb at this time. Moving forward, I really would encourage the member to make her constituents that have been affected aware of the Flood Re scheme. There is a levy that is taken from all insurance payments in the UK that can go towards helping those that are in these areas and people who have faced this difficulty in the past as well. But the Assembly is not in a position where it can step in and provide that sort of cover that otherwise would be covered by insurance.
Guy Whittle.
And thank the Minister for his answers. Minister, over this past number of years there have been several significant flooding incidents across the Foyle constituency. Can the Minister indicate how much funding has been paid out from his department over the last 5 years within the Londonderry and Strabane Council area?
Minister.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I can. In the Londonderry and Strabane Council area in 2019-20, there were payments of £14,000 paid out. The following year, £19,000. The following year, £15,000. The following year, 22-23, was £156,000, and the year after that was £23,000. That's just the support that was given through this particular scheme, but I do want to put on record my thanks to those in his local council area that did so much to help people that were affected during that time. The member will be aware of how the local community came together, how the council provided additional support on top of the support that was provided through the department. I know because of some connections I have in the Eglinton area, that local churches and community groups in particular came together to provide that support. I don't believe that the department is able to provide all the help, support and funding that is required in a situation like this, but I am pleased that over the last number of years we have been able to provide £227,000 of support to help those that find themselves in that immediate need, and that will continue to be the case as we move forward.
Colin McGrath.
Mr. Speaker, would the Minister consider maybe evaluating that scheme and its effectiveness, given that there is an increase in the number of instances of floods, and also that these floods are taking place in newer places where they haven't experienced floods before, such as my constituents in Cathedral View and Cathedral Park and Downpatrick, who are now being hit with very high insurance premiums, even though their houses weren't flooded?
Minister.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, and I would also say to the member that I hope that he would share with his constituents the Flood Re scheme that can also be beneficial to them in the situation that they find themselves. In regards to the scheme itself, any change to that scheme is likely to incur additional costs for which there's no budget available at this moment in time, and any change to widen the application of the scheme is likely to impact the value for money assessment of this scheme and be repercussive as well. So that would need to be fully tested via an appropriate business case, and no further work is done on that. The member does raise an important point in regards to how often these events are happening, and that they're happening in places that didn't happen before. And I think there is a responsibility on this Assembly and on the Executive to make sure there is investment where that can make a difference in terms of flood defences and preventative work as well. And I will certainly support the Department of Infrastructure in that, because I would be quite happy if this department did not pay out anything from that fund because it wasn't needed, but we will need an awful lot of investment if that is to be the case.
Moving on, Connie Egan.
Mr Speaker, my officials have been working closely with Ards and North Down Borough Council and the developer Bangor Marine to bring forward plans for the development of the site by way of a development agreement. I do want to take this opportunity to pay tribute to officials from the Department for Communities who have worked very hard on this over very many years. The Bangor Marine team is currently working through the pre-commencement planning conditions, and in tandem discussions are continuing with the Crown Estate in relation to securing the necessary approvals for elements of the project located on Crown Estate land. Bangor Marine has started clearing trees and shrubbery from the Marine Gardens part of the site in advance of the nesting season to accommodate commencement of the construction of the public realm works, which are programmed to begin later this year. This will provide an economic boost to the wider Ards and North Down economy through increased tourism, city centre living and increased employment opportunities.
Thank you, Minister. The Queen's Parade site in Bangor has been derelict since before I was even born. It's something that people in Bangor are very keen to see happen. Unfortunately, it has been plagued by delays. It says on your own website that works were expected to start in summer 2023. When can we expect building to take place, and can you give the people of Bangor hope that you'll prioritise this?
Minister.
Well, Mr Speaker, I always hope that I can give the people of Bangor hope, hopefully in many different ways in the remainder of my time in office. But first of all, I would say I completely understand the frustration in and around this site. This has been going on, as the members indicated, for many decades. And it is something that I know people in the area have wanted to see progress for a long time. She will be aware of the negotiations, as I'd mentioned, with the Crown Estate. That has been somewhat protracted, gone on a lot longer than any of us would have liked, and that could push back the planned start date in this summer. However, she will be aware of the works that have taken place so far, and I can give her an assurance that this will be pushed forward from the part of my department as quickly as possible. I'm delighted that I'm going to be visiting very, very soon to see for myself the work that is going to be done. I think it was in my first or second day in office, Mr Dunn extended an invitation for me to come and visit, so I look forward to seeing that and to see the potential, because I think this absolutely could be a game changer and bring significant economic and social benefits, not just for the people of Bangor, but even more widely.
All the chambers.
Certainly welcome the comments of the Minister so far, but can I ask him, have any time limits been incorporated in the contract with the developer to ensure that various stages of the project are actually completed on time?
Sir.
I'm not aware of any hard and fast dates that have been put in to ensure that this is completed. Obviously, the target date is spring 2027. I certainly hope that that work can be progressed and finished. But like I said in my answer to Ms Egan, I will do everything that I can from where the department has responsibility to make sure that this is moved on as quickly as possible, because I understand the benefits that this can bring, and I want people to enjoy those as soon as possible.
Daniel McCrossan.
Mr Speaker, Minister, could you provide an update on the regeneration of Strabane Town Centre and what progress is made in the public realm scheme?
Yes, Mr Speaker, I can. I know that this has also been another area that has been some time in the making. The Strabane Public Realm project is at business case stage and is now scheduled for casework committee consideration within my department. There have been a number of iterations of the business case, and my officials have been working closely with Londonderry and Strabane District Council in getting the business case finalised for casework consideration over the past months. The project is of a scale that will require my approval, as well as Department of Finance approval, and in consideration of this project, I will want to consider the budget requirements alongside other capital funding priorities within my department.
Owen Tennyson. Speaker. Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Phase 1 of my department's programme of private rented sector reform already includes work to improve security of tenure through the introduction of much longer notice to quit periods via the Private Tenancies Act Northern Ireland 2002. The Act also specifies that regulations on exemptions must be in place before these longer notice periods are commenced. This is because without such exceptions, the legislation would be susceptible to challenges under Article 1, Protocol 1 of the Human Rights Act 1998 regarding interference with the control of use of property. My officials have taken on board the views of stakeholders and are developing a robust equality impact assessment to inform the drafting of these regulations, with consultation planned for in the coming months. In parallel, I am considering what Phase 2 of the private rented sector reform programme should include. I am conscious that the reform programme began with a review that is now over 8 years old, so I have asked my officials to re-engage with key stakeholders to refresh our thinking on what the most impact on improving the safety, security and standards of the private rented sector could be.
Mr. Tennyson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thanks to the Minister for his answer. The Minister will be aware that almost 2,900 households presented as homeless due to loss of rented accommodation in 22-23, a 17% increase on the prior year. As part of his consideration, is the Minister looking to Scotland in terms of indefinite tenancy, and does he also agree that any exemptions need to be tightly defined so that renters don't find themselves at the disposal of unscrupulous landlords?
So, Mr. Speaker, the priority for the department is to implement and put in place the changes that have been made and requested by this Assembly in 2022 with the Act that went through the House. Any further work will be given due consideration in time. However, I do understand the concerns that he has in both England and Wales, where they have moved to that no-fault eviction ban. There are quite a few, and indeed a growing number of exemptions to that, and so I believe that the Department and this House would need to be very careful in any move towards that. What we all want is the right outcome for our constituents, and that will all be taken into consideration.
Maurice Bradley.
I thank the Minister for his answers so far. Does the Minister agree with me that it's disgraceful if landlords use notices to quit instead of addressing complaints from tenants such as damp, mould and necessary repairs?
Sure.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, that I absolutely do agree with Mr. Bradley, and that is why there has been the need for this legislation, the potential for more legislation as well. It is not appropriate for a landlord to simply issue a notice to quit because a tenant is asking for improvements or reasonable measures to be taken. I would also say to the member that Council Environmental Health Officers have power to deal with damp and associated mould issues that are prejudicial to health through enforcing the statutory minimum fitness standard for housing, and that's applicable to all tenures.
Cathy Mason.
Please.
Mr.
Aware that the Living High Streets initiative is a community-led approach to placemaking that brings people together to consider their local high streets, tackle common issues and enable places and communities to thrive. It's an initiative that was led by the Ministerial Advisory Group for Architecture and the Built Environment with the production of the Living High Streets craft kit. And this was piloted in Downpatrick and led by the Regeneration Steering Group there, which is made up of local businesses, community and political leaders. The Department would very much like to be in a position to provide further financial support moving forward. Any further resource support will be subject to the necessary budget being made available.
Ms Mason.
Minister, you will be aware, and as you've said, that the Downpatrick Regeneration Working Group have been working tirelessly there with representatives from your department and of course the local council there to create this framework and vision for Downpatrick. I understand that there's budgetary constraints, but will you prioritise Downpatrick if a funding package does become available?
Minister.
Well, look, we've certainly seen the benefit of this moving forward, and I would very much like to be in that position to provide further financial support. And once the budget outcome is known, I hope that will be the case. But the members put her concern on the record.
Brian Kingston.
And I wish to ask the Minister, does his department have any other plans for further pilots to take forward the Crafts Kit scheme, including in North Belfast?
Minister.
Well, it's funny the member should ask because the Department is currently working with the Greater Shankill Partnership, the Better Understanding in Local Development Group and other key statutory organisations and stakeholders in the Greater Shankill area to take forward a further pilot of the Craft Kit subject to resources and also to demonstrate its use in a setting such as the arterial route into Belfast.
Question 6 has been withdrawn. I call Mark Durkin.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Question number 7.
Minister.
With your permission, Mr Speaker, I'm going to group questions 7 and 9 together. In determining whether an Assembly question is operational, consideration is given to whether the question is about the day-to-day running of an arm's-length body, advisory group or other public body with links to the Department. The aim is to provide clear delineation between my department's responsibilities in terms of policy development and operational delivery by ALBs and other relevant public bodies. It aligns to the principles of ALB partnership arrangements. Final decisions are made by me as Minister for Communities in approving answers prior to issue.
Mr Durkin.
Thank the Minister for his answer. I was half expecting him to give me the Housing Executive's phone number because within the first month of taking office, the Minister has referred 78 Assembly questions to the Northern Ireland Housing Executive. That's not to mention Sport NI or the Arts Council. Does the Minister think this is acceptable? Does this make him accountable? And has he any plans to review this practice?
Minister.
No, I have no plans to review this practice because I want Assembly members to get the information in the most timely way possible. There is, of course, precedent for this in the rest of the United Kingdom. Ministers in Parliament will often refer questions to outside organisations as well. So the member can either take the approach of writing to the Housing Executive and asking for the information, or he can go down a longer route and a more costly route. He can go down that route, which is to go to the Assembly Business Office, which takes the question and sends it to the DFC private office that commissions a lead business area within DFC. The lead business area will then contact the ALB to request specific information. The ALB then gathers information and provides it to the DFC business area. And then the business area will draft the response on the basis of the info provided by the ALB. The draft answer then goes through the official level processes. The draft answer is then provided to the private office. It's then reviewed by a SPAD, if I had one, and then it's approved by the Minister, and then it's issued by the DFC private office to MLA and Assembly Business Office. So it's very simple and straightforward. Do you want the information as soon and as quickly as you can get it in the most efficient way, or do you want to go through that whole palaver in order to get it? And if the member is serious about getting that information as quickly as possible, he'll want to go through the previous route. I do have to say, though, I find it interesting that the SDLP announced that they were going into opposition and said, we will provide a new type of politics that addresses the problems facing parents and families across our communities. But both of the questions that they have listed for answer today are about the internal processes of this Assembly.
Cara Hunter.
Speaker, just on that point and seeking clarity for those families and our constituents, was the Minister's predecessor doing something wrong by answering members' questions and referring 0 questions to the Housing Executive during her last 2 years in office?
Minister.
I'm not saying that the previous minister was doing anything wrong, but I certainly believe the approach that I have taken will ensure that the member gets her answer much more quickly and that there will be less pressure on my departmental resources as well. But I do think it is interesting that the member has come along today to ask this question, and she hasn't decided to ask a question about housing, about poverty, or about sports provision, or about homelessness, or about regeneration, or disability support. It's a process issue, and that's what the SDLP seem most concerned about.
That concludes the questions. Move to topical questions. I call Daniel McCrossan. Mr. McCrossan.
Mr. McCrossan. Very sorry, Mr. Speaker, I was caught off guard in the moment there.
This is Serbia.
Minister, in light of your department having approximately 700 fewer staff than needed, will you be drawing up a workforce succession plan to manage the recruitment and retention problems, consequent skill set deficit and significant number of temporary promotions currently being experienced? Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, that has of course been identified as a problem. It's something that I want to see addressed and ensure that we have the right number of staff in place so that we can fully deliver on the aims and objectives of my department.
Mr. McCrossan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Minister, at the Communities Committee we were told that the recruitment pause, temporary promotions and staff leaving the department has exacerbated a major problem within the department, particularly in developing strategies or getting them completed. When will the Minister publish an action plan to turn the staff crisis in his department around?
Minister.
In response to the member, I said I don't have that in front of me. I don't have that detail now, but I do want to assure the member that I do have concerns over that. We need a properly resourced department, and we'll take the necessary steps to try to achieve that.
I call Cheryl Brownlee.
Speaker, and to the Minister, I would ask, in light of the shockingly low 10% success rate of applicants to the Arts Council Marching Band scheme, could he provide an update on funding for this financial year and also for the future?
Minister.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, in this financial year, 23-24, £400,000 was allocated to the musical instruments programme. And of that, 200,000 was awarded to 23 bands right across Northern Ireland. I'm pleased to announce that following a reallocation exercise as we approach the year end, I am able to allocate a further £100,000 this year to the musical instruments programme. The Arts Council had already assessed the applications and have now worked through the reserve list. I expect a further 8 bands will now benefit from the decision that I have made, and I look forward to visiting some of those who have benefited from this programme. In terms of future funding, this will be dependent on my department's funding allocation and budget for the next financial year. However, I recognise the importance of such funding to bands, and I hope to be in a position next year to offer further support.
Thank you, and thank you to the Minister. I, of course, welcome his update. Does the Minister agree that marching bands make a very positive contribution within our communities right across Northern Ireland?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I absolutely agree that bands make an important contribution, and in a number of ways. It gives many young people an opportunity to get involved. Some will have no or little musical experience, and they can become proficient. I think you'll also find that these young people and others come from all sorts of socio-economic backgrounds as well. The bands can help to give people a real sense of belonging and community. And I know in particular from experience in my own constituency, and I'm sure that other members will agree, the bands were an incredible support to local communities during the pandemic. They're also a vehicle by which important issues can be raised. I think of Cairncastle Flute Band in my own constituency that a number of years ago did a lot of work in raising awareness of mental health issues that many in the community face. So from an individual point of view and a community point of view, it's a great way of getting more people involved and getting more people involved in the arts. I would also want to take the opportunity to put on record my thanks to the many people who are involved, who are nearly all volunteers, who do a brilliant job right across Northern Ireland.
Robbie Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can the Minister give an update on matters that he may have raised with the UK Sports Minister in his recent visit to Northern Ireland, and in particular any discussions in regard to the delivery of the sub-regional sports stadium project?
Minister. Well, the member will be aware that the command paper stated that there would be a meeting that would take place between the Communities Minister and the UK Sports Minister within a month of the Assembly returning. That happened last Monday. I was very pleased to welcome the Minister to Northern Ireland and to take him around a number of different clubs in Northern Ireland to see the amount of investment that is going to be required to bring those clubs up to standard. The Minister will be writing to the Secretary of State and the Prime Minister outlining the visit and the actions that need to be taken, and I look forward to further action and investment to ensure that we can bring our clubs up to standard.
Mr. Butler.
I thank the Minister for his answer. Can the Minister point out if any additional funding request was sought of the Sports Minister in regard to the delivery of sub-regional stadium projects? And would like to offer the opportunity for the Minister, if he hasn't yet visited Lisburn Rangers and Lagan Valley Lisburn with me, done so far, to visit with myself.
Minister.
So I raised this issue with the Sports Minister. Every club that I visited with the Sports Minister raised this issue with him as well. And he was very clear with me on departing that he had heard the message loud and clear about the need for more investment in our sports infrastructure in Northern Ireland. I'm more than happy to accept the member's invitation. I think nearly every football ground in the country has invited me to come and visit, and so if the clubs mentioned are not already on the list, I'll be happy to add them to it.
Shannon Hull.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Minister be aware of a recent Russell Trust report that states 62% of people on universal credit in Northern Ireland have fallen behind on their bills. Given the lack of uptake of the contingency fund, can the Minister outline what his department will do to create awareness of that to those who are especially experiencing that 5-week wait?
Minister.
Yeah, I'm not aware of the specific figure that the member created. I know there was a survey, I think, carried out among, I think it was maybe 100 people in Northern Ireland. I'm not sure if that's from the same survey, but certainly from my point of view, I want to make sure that people are getting what they are entitled to, and I would hope that the member would refer people to the department's Make the Call service as well, so that people are getting the support that they're entitled to.
Isabel Hull.
And on that, in terms of the mitigation that we're facing, obviously a cliff edge when we come to 2025, can the Minister outline any plans to work against that and to put in place support for people who might be facing that cliff edge?
Minister.
I'm aware of the difficulties that many are facing and the additional help that will be required. I'm waiting on a report to come forward in terms of those mitigations, and then we'll need to develop a plan on the way forward. That plan will require a budget and executive support, but I can assure the member it's very much on my radar.
Harry Harvey. Mr. Speaker, can the Minister outline what current investment is required within Northern Ireland Housing Executive to bring it up to standard?
Minister.
Well, the short answer, Mr. Speaker, is a lot. The Housing Executive faces significant investment challenges. The 30-year requirement was updated via a stock validation report in 2021 and estimated to be £10.3 billion in 2022 prices. This reflects the cost of addressing the backlog in maintenance, ongoing stock maintenance and investment, and the costs associated with decarbonisation and retrofit. An outline business case has been developed which identifies a preferred option to tackle the significant investment challenge and to put the Northern Ireland Housing Executive onto a sustainable footing, and officials are in the process of testing the assumptions made within the outline business case and around access to borrowing.
Mr. Harvey.
And thank you for your answers, Minister. Minister, what actions will you undertake to try and meet these funding challenges and help address the shortage of social housing in Strangford?
Minister.
Yeah, well, Mr. Speaker, there is a serious issue of concern here, and from my own point of view, the current situation is not tolerable beyond the short term. And the additional problem that we have is that the investment challenge is getting worse with every year that passes. So I want to put the housing executives' 82,000 homes onto a much more sustainable footing so that tenants have confidence that we're able to keep them safe, warm and dry in the long term. This will take a substantial injection of funds, and so subject to agreement by His Majesty's Treasury, I would like to see the housing executive have the same access to borrowing as social landlords in the rest of the UK, and I believe that this is necessary, and I believe that it can be transformational.
Questions 6 and 7 have been withdrawn. I call Mr Honeyford.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I've previously asked the Minister, I've been torturing the Minister around questions for sub-regional and separately importantly, because it's been mentioned some clubs that aren't actually able to get sub-regional around grassroots sports clubs. So can the Minister outline what capital funding will be coming forward for grassroots clubs in the next financial year?
Minister.
Yes. Mr Speaker, over the last 3 financial years, Sport NI has issued exchequer funding of almost £39.4 million and lottery funding of just over £17 million. This funding consisted of 3,394 grant awards to over 1,900 organisations, including grassroots sport and sports governing bodies. This year, Sport NI will have invested £7.1 million of national lottery funding to 37 sports governing bodies, and we have an ambition to boost that next year to over £8 million and £1.37 million of capital funding to improve sports facilities, including those that will benefit grassroots clubs. In terms of funding paid this year to the sports governing bodies, and by way of comparison across some of the sports governing bodies, I can advise that the IFA received 500,000, Ulster GAA 440, Ulster Rugby 450, Golf 264 and Tennis 52,000.
Honeyford.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and thank you to the Minister. I think we all want to see his support for grassroots clubs and that capital availability. I've previously raised with Sport NI and his own department around creating a grassroots sports fund that would be open to all sports, would help empower the local club and realise their own vision. Can I ask the Minister if he would meet with me to discuss this issue and look at more detail to look at create such a fund that we can increase and expand the amount of funding that grassroots sports gets?
Minister.
Absolutely, Mr Speaker. I'm more than happy to meet with the member, indeed any member, to discuss these issues, because I think it is critically important. I know there has been a huge underinvestment in grassroots sport and sporting facilities for many, many years. I believe that sport has the power to be transformational. I think that sport gets more people active, gets more people working together, and creates better opportunities for our young people as well, which then will take off pressure in future years on the health system, on the justice system and on other departments that are short of money. This is a type of early intervention that really pays off, and it's one that I fully support, and I'll be happy to work with them on that.
Cathy Mason.
Minister, during the recent flooding incidents in South Down, a number of our sporting facilities were damaged during this time. Do you have any plans to provide these clubs with any financial assistance or help to try and get them back on their feet?
Minister.
Although I don't have any specific plans around that at this stage, if there are certain facilities that have been damaged in that way, I'm more than happy for the member to bring details of those to me to see what support my department or its ALBs might be able to provide.
Ms Mason.
Minister, appreciate that. And it's just, have you any plans in the longer term to work directly with our local councils to review our community sporting facilities, specifically in our rural areas and areas of deprivation?
Well, Mr Speaker, I've outlined to Mr Honeyford already the emphasis and the importance that I place on sport and having appropriate sporting facilities. I think there should be a great working partnership between councils and DFC and Sport NI, and also our schools as well, who can play an important role in ensuring that there is appropriate provision there for young people, and indeed those that would not find themselves in that category, to be able to play sport. So that is something that I will be progressing, and I'm more than happy to work with the council that the member lives in, or indeed any other council across Northern Ireland.
All in Chambers.
Measure of time, I'll move straight to the supplementary. It's in relation to the regional and sub-regional stadia programmes. Minister, the sheer scale of additional capital funding been quoted for both is beyond what the Executive can credibly fund in the context of the reported budget landscape. Can I ask the Minister for his assessment of this?
Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I've been on record saying that the funds that were set aside for the sub-regional football stadia was not sufficient. I don't think it comes close to meeting the need that exists out there. I think it was a small enough pot of £36.2 million in 2011. I think that is an even smaller amount now in relative terms. So that's why I've taken the action to speak directly to the UK Sports Minister, and I will of course be engaging with executive colleagues to make sure that we have the funding that is necessary in order for these plans to proceed.
That concludes. Point of order, Mr. Turkin.
Mr. Speaker, in the interest of openness, transparency and full accountability for public funds, can the Speaker advise if it is in order for ministers to abdicate responsibility for answering members' questions, reasonable requests for information, to